Thank you for giving me such an opportunity, Praveen, Nilesh, Anil, and many of my esteemed Indian friends and Indian mentors. Most Japanese hand surgeons also treat elbow problems. Today, I introduce a part of pediatric elbow fractures focused on the complications after supracondylar fractures. That is the most common thing in children. It's known as the most common pediatric elbow fractures with variety of complications. It causes fall into hyperextension, occurs in boys left and 5 to 6 years of age. Also in our series, we took 179 elbows male and left are dominant, and the mean age is 6.2 years. In the severe case, we see such deformities shown in the slide. There is a pucker sign, the fragment is stuck to the skin. Supracondylar fracture have a variety of complications. And the time series of the complications are like that. Immediately after the injury, we can see the neurovascular injury. As I told you, the severe type has a severe deformity with a possible neurovascular injury. 10 to 20% have the nerve injury. The most involved, the anterior interosseous nerve in any reports. The meta-analysis also. The index FDP and FPL do not work, so the patients have the teardrop sign. However, 92% had complete recovery. Median time to recovery was 2.3 months. Over 90% is recovered by 6 months. About vascular injury, 2 to 3% is reported. The collateral arteries are thin, so the circulation is a problem. If we suspect the vascular injury, we need the emergency for exploration and decompression. The pink pulseless hand is one of the characteristics of vascular injury after supracondylar fracture. The hand is well perfused with that pulse. We need the admission for the observation. Monitor carefully the pink pulses 24 to 48 hours after the surgery. If the perfusion and the pain worsen, exploration of the brachial artery is indicated. However, it's much more important to decide on open reduction and confirm the vessel during surgery. Next is a component syndrome. The forearm gets swollen after the severe displacement. You know the conventional signs are 5 Ps. The most important is the pain. However, epidural anesthesia and patient-controlled anesthesia, PCA, after the surgery masks the pain and leads the compartment syndrome. Recently, 3As, agitation, anxiousness, and increasing analgesic requirement are important. Anyway, we have to pay attention to the situation under the postoperative anesthesia. Here is one case with manual reduction. However, as the next day to the injury, the reduction, the boy came back due to the contracture of the fingers with the swollen. We made sure the interrupted blood flow at the fragment with the ultrasound. The vessel was stuck to the fragment, and we could release it. After that, we made sure the blood flow. Next, cubitus velar deformity. This complication leads after the complications of secondary fracture, third PLRI, and ulnar nerve palsy. It presents such deformity. Cubitus velar is caused by the muscle balance of the triceps and the biceps. These muscles can cause the distal fragment to angulate to the internal rotation, hyperextension, and varus. Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's a tardive ulnar palsy. Because medial head of triceps shifts medially and pushes the ulnar nerve like that, anterior transposition is a good indication. The cubitus varus also causes tardy PLRI. That. It's a PLRI test. Axial decompression, valgus, and supination leads to subluxation. It makes the dimple. And also, it causes refractures such as lateral condylar fracture. There are such complications, so we should consider the correction with osteotomy. As I told you, the cubitus varus deformity after supracondylar fracture is complicated, so the correction seems to be difficult. So a variety of osteotomies have been developed so far. We reviewed our cases of osteotomies for cubitus varus deformities. We made a comparison between 3D and 2D osteotomies. There was a significant loss of correction at 3D osteotomy group. So in our study, it's more important to keep the correction after 3D osteotomy, but there is no significant more complications, such as instability even after 2D osteotomy. So currently, we perform 2D step cut osteotomy that cuts rectangle triangle, moves valgus, and fixed with wires like this. After that, the utility of the 3D osteotomy using the computer simulation was released by the group of the Osaka University, Japan. The lower right one is one of my case. It's a great system for correcting such a complicated cubitus varus. The recent reports suggested that 3D osteotomy, with which to clarify the rotational component preoperatively, might be needed. On the other hand, 2D osteotomy is recommended as a safe, reliable, reproducible, technically easy procedure. So, how do we avoid such deformities of cubitus varus? I analyzed our cases using multivariate analysis and found that the presence of medial comminution and the medial shift at the time of the initial fracture was a significant factor contributing to the progression of cubitus varus. Therefore, it's crucial to achieve proper reduction and fixation at the medial aspect. The last one is avascular necrosis. The McDonald and Hagman reported avascular necrosis as a distal humerus. That caused open reduction with a posterior approach by reduction more than 7 years after the injury. However, we sometimes experience the necrosis after non-dominant suprafrontal fractures. 4 years and 7 months after the injury, he was referred to our hospital due to pain. The time course of the radiography when the deformity was completed, elbow pain decreased. Although there are various reports, most cases show decreased pain with completion of the deformity. In our series, observation is recommended. Thank you very much.